Hmm. Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? It's your man Jake Kev here with my man Leif Taylor, just having our weekly conversation about all things health, wealth, relationships, happiness, and all things in between. Whatever a human being is capable of doing and being, we pretty much touch on it in some way, shape, or form. Why? Because it's just what we do. We like to do that. We like to have conversations and hopefully we can like mine out some nuggets, some pearls of wisdom that'll help us along the way when it comes to just living life. Um, Leif, I'm just thinking about, well, you know how I like to stay in the headlines and stuff, and how I like to keep abreast of current events and the goings on in the world. And I came across this simple, short article, just kind of place things back in perspective for me as I look across the horizons of 2021. Just thinking about, man, it ain't looking too good as far as the trajectory of with the way things is going in a lot of ways. In one way,
Shoot.
things are looking good, but in another perspective, things aren't looking so good. So it just depends on your perspective, I guess. But just thinking about 2020 and what we came out of and what we're in now, just thinking about how important, how essential it is to really uh, control what you can. Focus on the controllables. Focus on the things that you can control in your life, especially when it may seem like things are getting chaotic or out of control. So it's best not to worry or just think about those things that you really can't really have any major impact on or really affect, but focus on the things you can control. So, so yeah, I came across this article and it was just talking about how there's times in our lives where we are confronted with the reality that we are not in control of the world around us. We're not in control of the people around us. We're not in control of just things of everything around us. So it's essential that we spend time focused on the things we can control. It may be just like simple things like you can control when you wake up. You can control, how you're going to start your day in the morning. You can control how physically active you are. You can control what you eat. You can control how you affect and how you design the environment around you. You can control what you do with your family. If you love your family, these are simple things that we can all do that can help us like make us feel like that we do have some control, which we do. We all have some, uh, monicum, some level of control in our life, and it's essential. It's important that we spend our time focusing on some of those things when it comes to just hard times, tough times, chaotic times. So that article got me thinking about that, and I must have been thinking about this for the last week because I was looking at some of the things on my timeline, and it's like one of the things I posted was stop overthinking. You can't control everything; just let it be. So I guess it's like a major theme is kind of like popping up in my head. Um, I had a friend who got some tough news,
Okay.
and immediately, that's that. What came to mind is okay. It's like instinct now to just focus on the things that you can control. It was
Yep.
concerning, their health,
Yep.
and they had gotten some bad news about their health, and I just I've kind of trained myself to like just take in the bad news, feel it, and it's like, all right, this is where we're at.
Yep.
So what steps, what can we do going from this point going forward? And immediately, the first thing that came to mind, we always talk about health, wealth, relationships, and purpose. And sometimes when we say purpose, we talk about spirituality or purpose and prayer. So immediately, the first thing that instinct was to start praying about it, and then you start going down the list of the other things that you can do to affect the situation. So, what say you, Leif?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been there in terms of receiving. I think we all have to some degree or another, receive information we don't necessarily like. It could be something about our own personal health. It could be about like now, deaths. It could be about a whole variety of different things. And like you said, I'm kind of like you in terms of I just a lot of times just filter the information and it's not even filter like in terms of like a news source. It's really just I just let it soak in, so to speak. I just
Yeah.
let it just marinate and just formalize my thoughts around the information that is received and then how to react going forward. There's been very few times in my life. I mean, I've had them, but to where I've received information that had an immediate response. Uh,
Yeah.
so I just tend to just soak it in and and just really just I first analyze how I think about the information I receive before I analyze the information. Sometimes, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's where I start, and then I just go from there. If it's something personal, then I take in that information, I assess it, and then it's like, okay, I always like to start at ground zero. What is the ground zero after you've received such information? You mentioned your friend had a bad health prognosis or information, and it's like, okay, now that I know this, what can I do about it? What are my options, right? And then that's tend to how I personally go about those kinds of things, and then just start thinking about those options. Uh, and I get critical before I get emotional first. That's just the way I
The
process
way you're
information.
wired.
Yeah, it is. It's just the way I'm wired. It's not that it's better, not that it's worse. It's just how I am, and it's how I've basically, I guess, grown to be over the years.
Hmm.
I don't think I started, I don't, think I started that way, but it's just how I just go about stuff now. It's like, okay, you know, just I just weigh all the, the Doctor Strange, the 46 million, it's like one of those kind of
Scenarios. Yeah.
yeah, without the head movements, it's like okay, and then you just I don't know resolve to go forward from that point, and feel how you feel about it from that point forward.
Yeah. Well, that's one. I think it's one of the side effects or one of the benefits of kind of just coming to terms with making yourself focus on the controllables. In that, when you train yourself to do that, it kind of gets you out of being in a reaction mode and it puts you in a response mode. Reaction, I know what it's like to be in the reaction mode to where you come up against opposition or you get some adverse news or something, and you just immediately just react to it versus respond to it, meaning you have a framework or a structure or you have some habits in place that helps you uh, respond, meaning you're choosing, you're choosing how you react, you respond to a certain situation.
Hey,
Um,
Martine.
who's that? Hey, Martine. Thanks for joining us. Just talking about during tough times how important it is to focus on the controllables, focus on those things that you can control. And we were, just talking about getting bad news. I'm thinking about initially during my health journey, how what started me off was getting some bad health news,
Yep.
and yeah, and just my immediate response was, what can I do, doc?
Yep.
And then his response to that is what kind of set me on the journey. Like, it don't even make sense. He was like, well, there's nothing you really can do. I was like, what?
That never sits well with me. It's like,
I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah. He said, well, you got some options here. You can get a surgery, or you can take this pill, and then after that, after things get worse over the next couple of years, depending on how fast things deteriorate, then you
yeah,
got these options. I was like, dang, man, that's rough. That's brutal, man. How you gonna tell a young guy or a young lady? I know I've heard other people's stories that were kind of similar, and that there was really no hope, no hopium, no
yeah,
nothing, no encouragement. It's like this is what it is, and then it's gonna get worse, and we'll deal with it when it gets worse. It's like, dang. So it kind of, they kind of just set me on the journey of um, looking at and researching out things that I can control, that I can do and implement, that'll help at least give me some kind of relief and
Yep.
hopefully, put things on the right path, so to speak. Um, so what
And
say you, Leif?
yeah, I would say I want to touch on that as well because, like you said, sometimes the information you receive is very minimal, and it's like, okay, here's what you should do. It's like, no, there are options, and so
It's easy to forget.
yeah, and so that is one thing I would definitely like to let people know and understand. And it's like because it's funny, I talked to a doctor recently, and we was talking about some stuff, and I was like, well, I don't agree. I was like, and I understand you're giving your best guess hypothesis on things, but the fact that you don't know, the fact that I know you don't know, doesn't make you an authoritative on what should be done next. An authority. You can only give your opinion.
Yeah.
Only give me, what you think is best, but I'm not buying it. And and that's literally how I talk to doctors when I'm going in. It's like, don't sometimes too much to just take like simple answers, if that makes any sense. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is everything is not cut and dry as it always appears to be, or as they sometimes they make it seem as and again, I know this from medicine, from the standpoint of it's a practice. They can only go based on scenarios that they know. They can give you opinions, but nobody yet, unless you're a prophet of God, can tell you
Mhm.
what your future outcome is truly going to be. And a lot of times, those outcomes are based on the predictability of human behavior that most people won't change. But that doesn't mean that the opportunity to change isn't there. And so you have to always be mindful of that as well, because some people resolve themselves to the opinion of someone else,
Thank you
right?
for sharing your experience,
Yeah,
Shamika.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so you have to understand, like in any given scenario, like if somebody tells you that this is what's going to happen, it's like, okay, where do you come up with this opinion? Ask them that. where what information are you reading that gives you that conclusion? Why is it that this is the outcome you expect? And then if they can't explain that, then you can't explain to me a solution either, right? And so and again, understand, like you said, we're talking about things that you can control. uh,
Yes. And you could control asking questions and research. Yeah.
and you should ask tons of questions, especially if your life is on the line. You better ask as many questions as possible.
But we're not
And
taught to do that, though. We're not trained to do that for the most part. We're
and
trained
you
to say, to accept, whatever's given, and that's it.
Yeah, and so a lot of people walk away dejected instead of empowered, and you have to again understand it. Like, for example, I know we talked about it probably a few years now, but when we take our kids to the doctors, they're a lot older now. We had them, even at little, when they were like babies, we had them talk directly to the doctor. We had them ask the doctor questions. We had them, basically giving them keys to control their own health. Like, this is the kind of dialogue that you should have. So when the doctor, like, we would be present, of course. We weren't the ones, leave your kid behind and wait in the other room. No, we gonna be there.
Right.
But we had them, we told them to ask the questions, and we sat there with them while they asked their little baby questions. But it empowers them, and it causes a dialogue so they can ask any authoritative figure what, why, when, just to think consciously, just to think logically, just to be inquisitive, especially when it comes to their health. So again, questions are something you can control. Uh, your mindset about it, and and always give pushback on any solution that requires your involvement. Always. And the pushback is not just to be defiant. The pushback is to get more information so
Clarity.
that you can better assess where you should go or how you should go about doing it. If you're, some people don't quite understand, certain medical terms or whatever, take somebody that you trust or somebody that you love, take them with you. Like, for example, when my mother goes to the hospital, she takes me with her. And so, whatever they tell her, whatever, she's like, okay, my son is going to come in here and you're going to explain to him exactly what, I'm not going to be in there when they do the exams, but,
Right.
it's like, okay, we're going to have a conversation about what's going on. We're going to talk about, what steps need to be taken. We're going to talk about, what kind of health modalities are needed. We're going to talk about, what kind of attitude should be had or whatever. And it's not going to just be, okay, or we just accept any information that is given. And that's not to say you don't shun responsibility, because that's something you can control. That's the whole purpose of having the dialogue, is so you can be more responsible and that you can grab the reins of your life back, so to speak, to some degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these things are extremely important, especially for the Black community, and I say that for a reason, because historically we've had issues with with health and dealings
Just
with
not. We're talking about health now, but this focuses on just just about any area.
yeah
Like when you were talking, we're talking about health, but I was in the back of my mind, I was thinking about law and courtroom
every,
experiences, and
everything.
just how how important it is that you can you do whatever you can to control um, whatever it is you can control, and think about how you are to approach any arena or any area of life. So
Yeah,
yeah, just the Black community with respect to any area.
it's just about empowering yourself.
Yeah.
And like, even when it comes to contracts, I don't care how long the contracts are, take your time and read it. I don't care if it's at the hospital. I don't care if it's for a mortgage, for a lease, for a car, for finance, for a bank. I don't care what it is. If you're going to sign your name to it, take your time to read it, and don't let anybody rush you through it at all. Like
Man,
seriously.
you ain't gotta read this, man. Just trust me, man. Just sign
Yeah.
right here. It's all
Nah,
good.
nah, I'm gonna take my time, and you're gonna be patient about it, or else something. If you're trying to rush me through it, then there's a problem, right? And always, you have to always be mindful of other people's agendas. And again, because
Mhm.
we're talking about things you can control. If it, if you're of sound mind and body, and you're expected to sign something, then you should be expected also to read it, and you can read it at whatever pace. There's no time limit on it, and typically if somebody's trying to rush it, then something's wrong anyway. And
I,
so
I'm
what do
I'm
you
just
say?
thinking about all those consent boxes I done checked on these apps and stuff.
Oh yeah, they taking all your information straight up. Like, how did they know I was here? Like, yeah, you told them. You said you could have everything.
I
I got
posted it and everything.
exactly. It's like, why do you need my contacts if I don't even use this to contact nobody? It's
When you
like,
said that, you made me think of how the big story these today is for last week is I'm thinking about Reddit and
yeah,
the how they're running up how they're fighting back as far as uh, GameStop,
yeah,
and just thinking about how the what is that, the Robinhood app,
yeah,
how they feed real time information of what the retail investor is doing. They feed the information to the whales, and they're watching real time what the retail investor is doing, and then they respond. How they
yeah.
play the market in response. And I was just thinking about, yeah, I mean, how many people actually know that they're doing it when they check the I consent box? That's
Yeah.
controllable,
Yeah, and again, there's little stuff like that, right? Just again, we're just talking about things that you focus on, the things that you can control. because in a chaotic world, it seems like you have no control or whatever. But there are certain things in your own life that you can control, and it's gonna vary from day to day. Sometimes,
Yeah, yeah.
today I can control the movement of my arms. Tomorrow I may not be able to control the movement of my arms, but I may be able to control the way I think about the way I move my arms or how I used to move, whatever, right? And
Yeah,
so just be mindful of your realm of control, the things that you do have control over, and sometimes it's more than you expect, more than you know,
yeah.
um, and
So you shouldn't think about it.
and you can control the time you invest in learning about those things that you should have control over. You can take the time to invest in knowing about literally time. You can just control your own time. And sometimes people don't think they have control over that. They think it's controlled by their job. They think it's controlled by their circumstances. They think it's controlled by a variety of things. When in truth, sometimes the only control over those things are you, and you're putting you're giving
You
the reins of
giving,
control
yeah,
over other things. And the we just happen to live in a world where there's choices, and you have to be mindful and understanding that you do have choice in a lot of things you think you don't. And so definitely take control of that. For example, I was in a conference all week. It was for animation, and like they had rooms for the attendees to talk, and some of the ladies in this particular room were just talking about how some certain job circumstances weren't adding, they just weren't right, and so they left. And I was giving them credit for leaving, because some people would just stay. They're like, man, I hate this here, they doing this ain't right, blah blah. But they'll stay for years and just complain about it as if they have no control over it. And they were talking about, yeah, it was scary. Of course I'm working there, so that's where my income is coming from.
yeah.
But the situation wasn't right, so I left. And they found out that they have, especially this one particular lady, she found out she had more control over her life than she thought. She's like, yeah, I left and I feel way better about life. The world
Happy,
didn't
happy
end.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I took control over my finances, because she realized, because that's another aspect of control. Once you realize where your controls can go, the things that you can control, then you realize, like, oh, I didn't have to be a slave to that particular thing anyway. Like I gave up my freedom to that for no reason. And so her life changed for the better for her. And some other people were talking about the same thing. They was like, yeah, because when you realize it, going back to the health diagnosis, sometimes these situations can ruin your health. They can literally take years off of your life because of the undue stress that is experienced and that kind of stuff.
they
So
do. Yeah.
so again, just be mindful of that. Just like you said, focus on those things that you can control. And again, you'll find yourself being empowered to control other aspects of your life that you didn't realize you had control over.
It carries over, it has a carryover effect. When you straighten up one area, it has a tendency to kind of affect all the other areas of your life. Right now, I'm thinking about relationships and thinking about reacting to other people
Yeah,
and focusing on, your emotion, your mindset, and your physical body, and how you react to other people. So, believe it or not, there are people out there who like pushing your buttons. And if you don't focus on what you can control as far as your response or your reaction, then it can lead down some terrible paths.
yeah.
So it can lead to some terrible situations.
And usually those buttons are pushed because they know you don't know how to control them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know I can get him here.
Yeah, that's why the button presents itself, right?
But, well, yeah, and that comes with self awareness and knowing your triggers and knowing where your buttons are and how to respond. Our mutual friend Gus used to laugh at me, and my one of my responses is I get sleepy.
Jeffrey takes a nap. He's like, I'm
I
gonna
just take a nap, man. I just take a nap.
like there's a meteor coming toward the earth.
Oh, let me go.
I'm gonna take a nap. It's like the action movie turns into a nap. But
I don't know what it is. I think I know what it is, but really, I just go take a nap, man. Just sleep on it. That's the best advice somebody gave me. Just sleep on it.
It's like my disengage button has been ejected. Like,
It's like somebody pulled the plug on me. But yeah, man, there's a lot. It seems to be a lot of stuff going on out there, and I just thought, it poignant just to talk about how important it is, in today's world to just focus on those things you can control and exert influence over. Because if you don't, you'll drive yourself crazy trying to control everything and trying to make sure everything's the way it's supposed to be in your eyes. So you'll wear yourself out.
I was talking to a young lady before we got on a couple of hours. Actually, it was an hour ago, actually. And she was talking about stressing over all the stuff she had to do, with school, work. And I was like, I'm gonna give you some daddy advice right now. I was like, then I'm gonna give you some some practical advice. And one of the things I told her was, I was like, the stuff you're stressing over doesn't even matter. Your grades, these things that you think are so monumental, in the day is really not gonna matter. And so I wanted her to get a grip on that first. I was like, because you'll drive yourself crazy,
Yeah.
putting so much stress and pressure on yourself to do the simplest of things.
And students actually commit suicide and
exactly.
Literally drive themselves crazy.
Talking to her about, I was like, the stress that you're putting on yourself is not worth it. I was like, and understand that it's probably being compounded by you being in quarantine that you don't realize. You're becoming overly anxious and overly pressured to do certain things. And so, and I was just walking her through it. And I was like, okay, I was like, schoolwork, I was like, it really don't matter. I was like, of all the years I've worked, of all the years that I've done all of these things, I've only had one time where my actual school records were pulled to see what I did, and that's when I taught at the university. Outside of that, nobody cared. Literally, 0 people cared. They didn't even know if I actually had a real degree or not. They didn't care. And so I was just telling her that I was like, at the end of the day, what you care about is the knowledge that you're supposed to be getting. Focus on that. Like, do the assignment, but the assignment is not the real thing. It's just you understanding what you need to be doing and focusing on the real end goal. Because, again, it's these imaginary people in our head, these imaginary hurdles, these imaginary timelines, these imaginary, pressures that we put on ourselves can literally deteriorate your health to the point where you die, and it's not worth it. And so and another guy came in and he basically validated the same information back to her. It's like, yeah, we've seen people do all kinds of stuff, like make all kinds of money, and at the end they sacrifice things that weren't even worth the sacrifice, and they even admitted it themselves. But we're too often caught up in the dream and not the reality of some of those things that have been sold to us, right? And so in that, we always talk about narrative a lot. Control your narrative, control your focus, control.
That's what you can control. Yeah.
That's what you can control. You can control the things you look at. You can control the things that whether you watch something or not. That's the stuff you can control. Focus on that and take back your mind. Take control back of your mind, because that's really where most of the battles are.
Oh my goodness. Thea Cooper says this topic is on time with a post from one of my Facebook, FBFS this morning. The only bird that will peck at an eagle is the crow. He sits on his back and bites his neck. The eagle does not respond or fight with the crow. It doesn't waste time or energy on the crow. It simply opens its wings and begins to rise higher in the sky. The higher the flight, the harder it is for the crow to breathe. Eventually, the crow falls due to lack of oxygen. Stop wasting your time with the crows. just take them.
Yeah,
I'm gonna assume to a higher level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's easy. That's easier said than done for a lot of people. Just not focusing on the distractors and the distractions. That's a learned skill for some of us to like focus. Man, just saying
Practice.
that. Just saying it. I'm thinking about. I went to my son's wrestling match,
Mhm.
and at this particular wrestling match, well, I don't. Let's just say that when you're on the mat, it's essential that you focus on the battle at hand, the
Yeah, it's like
match at hand,
task at hand.
and
Yeah,
not get distracted by the sounds or any motion or anything that's going on in the background. Because if you take your focus off of what's in front of you and what's important and what's essential, it's a wrap. You're gonna be pinned and you're gonna be folded up like a lawn chair.
yeah.
So
It's why, real quick
like,
before I won't forget. That's it's like when I watch a lot of fighting. I watch a lot of MMA,
yes,
boxing, wrestling, all of that kind of stuff. And one of the things that they talk about is the crowd, right? How do younger fighters or new fighters, not necessarily even younger, when they, the hard part sometimes about facing the champion is the champion is used to the crowd, the audience, the noise. They're used
yes,
to, and I've seen fights where the people get intimidated by the crowd before they even enter the fight. And it's that performance anxiety and all of those things is different when it's a
it,
smaller venue,
and
but
it's
when
the energy of the crowd. You
yeah,
can really feel that. Yeah,
and if you're not accustomed to it or if you haven't trained for it, it can that alone can make you lose.
yeah.
Because you can't focus on the fight at hand because you're too busy worried about what's going on in the crowd. So yeah, that's very wise.
Well, just I
Focus
mean,
on
just being in an environment like that, you can really feel the energy in the room. And if you're not prepared for that, if you're not trained and focused, then that can really depend on what's going on. It can really uh, over energize you, make you anxious, or it can kind of make suppress you and make you fearful.
Yep.
Um,
Just crowd
so
performance in front of an audience is way different. I remember it was funny, like coming up, like I play basketball all the time. But if I went to the course and girls was there, like I ain't playing. Like, I ain't about to get embarrassed in no kind of way. I'll mess around, fight somebody. I'm like, I'm good. Like, nah, I
usually
ain't
it's the other way around. Usually you want to get on the court to show you.
because I didn't grow up around basketball, so I was always learning as I played, and I was like, nah, not the kid. All right.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
he's whack, man. He don't get no play.
Yeah. I'll practice at night, but yeah, you ain't gonna catch me practicing from me. So I definitely understand the crowd aspect of things, and even with public speaking, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yep.
remember like some of the first few times like I would speak publicly, man, it was horrible. Like it was just like I was like a dude with the rap. He's like, remember the black dude where he was on the TV show, he was gonna do a freestyle, and she's like, "Oh, you're gonna do a freestyle." I have to post the video. That's still one of my favorite videos. But he just froze. It's like he was on live camera, and he couldn't get no verses out. He was just like, She's like, "Oh, what about your book?" So she tried to speed it along, but it happens. Sometimes you just freeze up because you think too much about the exterior and you don't focus on the control over yourself. You worry too much about what somebody else is gonna think. You worry too much about, you become omniscient, right? In
Yeah,
your own mind to where you think what people are thinking. You think how people are gonna react. You think all of these imaginary things, but really you should just be focusing on what you're supposed to be doing. Focus on the things you control, focus on your own breathing, focus on your own patterns, and quit worrying so much about everybody else. And then when you do that, then it becomes a lot easier to just talk in front of people, just like Kevin and I. Like we and plus we gotten older, so it's like it don't even matter if mess up now. Like, who cares?
Well, it's a combination of things, right? It comes with practice.
Yeah, of course.
And it comes with figuring things out for yourself, and it comes with like we're talking about, focusing on those things that you can control. Those things that I can't control before I get up to speak is maybe getting a little bit not acquainted with the topic. Doing some research. Thinking about just a number of things that I can control.
Yeah.
So
it's just your mindset about it, which is really probably the biggest part.
The key.
Yeah.
Well, you're making me think of when I first started out, and I don't know if I think I told the story a bunch of times. Like when I was some memorable times was when I was in college. And I had to do a report or whatever in front of a presentation, and this one presentation I did, man, I was like, I did the the stuttering and stuff. I did so horrible that this one dude in class is like, man, just come with me.
He walked you off stage. Did he give you the hook?
Nah, well, it was a friend, and he just worked with me. He took me under his wing and just worked with me for about a couple months.
Okay.
Maybe record myself, maybe
nice. Yeah, at least he helped you out.
Yeah. Well, he was in the Army, and he just talked about how important it is to be able to speak and make your voice carry and all that kind of stuff. So he became my friend, and then just started working with me.
Yeah,
so
I can't take this struggle no more, brother. Here, you follow me. Yeah.
So that was
I've seen meltdowns before, like actual meltdowns in class and in all kinds of scenarios. Yeah, you just gotta, like you said, practice. And one of the things that going to public speaking, and then we'll get back on topic. It's still about the topic though. It was a guy named Jason Fried. They did Rework. They did the book Rework, 37 Signals. And they blew up. They created Ruby on Rails. They did Basecamp, which is still huge. So they became like millionaires because of the stuff that they made. And he was talking about his public speaking. And he was like, when I first started speaking, I was horrible. He said, I was literally horrible at it. He said, but I just kept doing it. And to where, now I'm giving presentations in front of you talking about how horrible I used to be, because, you got to overcome your own anxieties, just how to prepare, just like little things that, sometimes you don't get to understand until you go through the hard parts, right? Go through the embarrassments, you go through overcoming that stuff. And that's why, like I try to, especially when COVID wasn't around, I try to put my kids in as many things to make them speak as possible, even when they don't want to. We do family, like the gathering every Saturday, right? Even now. And during those times, like we'll volunteer our kids, like, okay, next week you're gonna do a presentation. You're gonna do a presentation for the family Zoom, and you're gonna answer questions, and just to get them accustomed to doing those things and getting over those fears now, so they don't have to go through the, they can do it in a controlled environment as opposed to just freezing and going through the uhs and ahs, when they get older, to where it may cost them some money. So
or yeah, I went through that when I was growing up in church.
Oh yeah.
I was made to get up front.
Oh yeah, ain't no choices.
Come on, man. You try to hide behind. Get up here.
Yeah, I can see your daddy making you do it now, and your mom.
Go up there and sing in the choir, boy. I want to sing.
Like, you ain't got no choice. It's like you either sing or fight. So.
Sing or get a whooping in front of everybody.
Exactly. So you gonna get this embarrassment one way or another. But but again, it's all about just focusing on the things you can control. Focus on your reactions. Focus on your mindset. Focus on your preparation. Focus on uh, just your due diligence in all aspects of life. Right. That those are things you can control, and again, a lot of circumstances. If you focus on what you can't control, then helplessness can begin to set in, and even from the standpoint of you can control sometimes reaching out for help, right?
That
And
was
that's
yeah, that was in the back of my mind. Yeah,
yeah, they don't reach out for help, and if somebody gives you the opportunity or the window to ask them for their help, and you need the information that they possess, take advantage of it, like straight up. Quit overthinking, because I hear this a lot of time. I heard it a lot this week. So the conference I was in, it was given by Nickelodeon, and they had like all kinds of people, just looking to get into the industry and all of this kind of stuff. And the one question that kept coming up over and over was people like, how do I reach out to this person? It's like you just
just
reach
do
out
it.
to them. Yeah, and but it just became such a mental barrier, even when they said reach out to us, like it just became such a mental barrier for a lot of people because there's confidence issue. There's a whole
Yeah,
lot of different things. You build up stuff in your mind and all these things, but you just start stacking yourself against yourself to where you end up, becoming paralyzed by fear or whatever. And so again, you start, pay attention so you can control those things. You can control your anxieties. You can control, just taking advantage of what's being offered to you. And help is one of those things that many people fail to access.
yeah. Asking for help is very essential, and it's one of those things that you can control is asking and just doing it. That's one of the things I had to learn to do over time is just say, you know what, need help. Can I get
Yeah.
some help?
You
Yeah.
can't control somebody's response, but you can control your ask. And
Yes. You never know until you get that
I
ass.
don't know. Like I remember like growing up, like my grandfather was the money man, right? And whenever I would need a loan, I just straight up ask him. Like I
Yeah.
had no problems with asking him. He'd tell me no. I'm like, all right, cool. And I just keep it moving. I always pay back my loan, just so y'all know. But I would bring it to his attention. I'm like, hey, I always pay
And
you
pay
back.
that back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never had a time, because he and the reason why I would ask him for loans is because I knew he was very frugal with his money, and that kind of stuff, and it was always for something out of necessity because I never asked for money I couldn't pay back anyway, and so it was just, but again, it was just the practice of just going through that, right, and again, if you it's those little bitty things like the family dynamics. If you can't overcome some of the hurdles in your family dynamics, then you're not going to overcome some of those hurdles in the world. And that's where I think like people fail to realize when it comes to family structure, the importance of it, the importance of that safe environment, the importance of pushing boundaries
Well,
and
you hope it's a safe environment. A lot of
yeah,
some people
no,
don't have.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, and again, I'm basing on the premise of us as adults that control
Right.
that environment now for our children, right? Because I
Okay.
know based on the people that watch our show, many of them have children. Some grown, some are still young, and so utilize that structure that's in place to basically help groom your kids for certain scenarios, right? And because again, it's designed to be a safe environment for them to understand
Mess it up.
limitations and boundaries, methodologies, all of that. And so you have to provide those opportunities, or if you don't provide them, then they don't exist. And so again, just use that because that's something we're talking about control. Usually in your four walls, barring somebody coming in to kick you out, breaking in, evicting you, or whatever, you can control that environment. And so make sure that you take advantage of that to the benefit of your family, to the benefit of yourself.
What are some ways that you can control that environment?
You can
Like
control.
like right like
Go
right
ahead.
now I'm thinking about like for example, uh one of the ways I control junk food eating is that I really don't bring it in.
That's funny.
You
I was literally thinking about that before we got online,
No
right?
stuff.
Yeah, like seriously, and the reason why, because like my wife is, she's not been,
Eating
ingesting
sugar.
sugar. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
I
'cause
just
we
know
had
because I've seen the post.
we had I didn't know she had a post. And so
What store she had a post?
yeah, she made one. Now
Okay.
that you said it, she told me about it. I didn't see it though. But even with that, it was just like when we had the conversation about it, I was like, hey, I mean, you control the environment. So if you don't want to eat something, then don't bring it in.
Don't do it
You
again.
know, I don't go shopping at all. Like it's a rarity that I even step foot in a store or wherever. I barely leave my house, let alone go somewhere to spend money. So, so, so I was telling her that, and I was like, if you don't bring it in, then that temptation is gone to take it, to eat it. It's just the way it works. If it's not there, it's just accessibility matters. So I understand when people complain about censorship and all of that. It's like I get it because the more available things are, then especially things that are bad for your environment, then that's not good for you. And everybody has to censor their own household to whatever degree, but even
Yeah.
still, I understand the reason why there's going to be pushback, and there should be pushback in terms of what's available in any given environment, right? And so talk about one way is about controlling your household, like what you eat, what you bring in the door. That's one way. We talked about noise levels, right? You can control noise levels. You can control how loud your television is. You can control how loud your music is blasted. You can control how loud maybe sometimes even your kids are. It's like hey, you want to like our girls. You want to be loud and have fun. I don't care. You just have to do that in your room. That's your noise place, right? So like as long as you're in your room, I'm not going to complain because we gave you that area to do so.
That's your environment that
Yeah,
you can do.
exactly. See,
Shauna says, I still had to learn to have self control. Even when sugar is in the house, it is no longer a temptation for me to eat the chocolate in the house. Yeah, that's the beauty of once you've, achieved a certain level of discipline and control,
yeah,
self control is that even when the temptation is there, it's not a temptation. It's nothing that's tugging at your desire or anything.
yeah, and again, when we talk about focusing on control, those the environment still helps with that, right?
Yes.
Because and what people fail to realize a lot of times, again, we've talked about this. I always say that anytime I know we've talked about the subject, but uh, if you don't have to fight the temptation to eat a lot of stuff in your house, then it becomes easier to reject the smaller stuff. So, in other words, it's almost like you have a gas tank full of disciplinary actions, and the more you have to use those disciplinary actions, the lower
Yeah.
that reserve goes to where then it's going to be something inadvertent where you just lose all self control. So, if you set up your environment to where you don't have to have discipline, then you can still retain that power because the more decisions you make throughout the day, if you have to use that discipline, it's going to deplete.
It's yeah, yes, yes, yep. Yeah, we talked about this talking about willpower
Yes.
that is finite. It's not
Yes.
infinite.
It has a limitation.
Yeah.
Better believe it. It has a limitation. And so you want to make sure that you set yourself up so that you can keep high reserves of willpower. Because again, when you don't, it affects you in a whole lot of ways, especially when you get out of a safe environment. So always
And
understand that. Always pay attention to that. Don't give yourself, don't give yourself an excuse to mess up in the areas where you shouldn't be messing up. I'll put it that way, and that's going to vary for different people.
yep. Well, Leaf, I think I hit my word wall, bro.
Well, I'm gonna ask you a question first.
Go
What's
ahead.
what's yeah? What's another way you can make your environment better? You talk about controlling your environment. What's another way you can control your environment?
Right off the top of my head, one of the things that I did to make my environment better when it came to like the atmosphere of the house, I went through a period of where I just played like inspirational music 24/7.
Gotcha.
And when I did that in the house and in the car, I noticed it affect not only me and as far as my outlook on life and my perception, and my attitude, but it also affected my kid, my sons and their outlook
Yeah.
and their perspective too. Even when they were just 24/7, I just played only inspirational, only encouraging, only the type of music. I went through a period where I cut out everything except for that, and it just really it made a really big difference.
Yeah, I've done that before too. So music is definitely one of them. I'm trying to think of something else. My wife will probably answer these better than me.
Essential oils. I know you didn't. I do the
Yeah. We do
as
like
far as the smells and stuff in there.
aromatherapy for sure.
Yep.
Like back in the day, used to be incense. My
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
for me, I can't stand smoke of any kind. My eyes just water up, and I can't take it. Now I don't know what happened. Maybe it's all the incense that was burned when I was a kid, but it's like I can't do it. But again, aromatherapy is definitely helpful for that. Just relaxing. I know my wife will do that for our daughters. They're having trouble sleeping. She's like, okay, we're gonna put certain oils in the room, just to make it relaxing, so you can that kind of stuff. That's another focus on control, right?
Talk about controlling our environment. Another thing was I started bringing in plants and using plants in
Yep,
the house,
that's my wife.
adding greenery and stuff in the house.
Yeah,
All of it affects your environment. It shapes how you feel, how you think, and just affects how physically are.
yep.
Um,
And also going back to
those are
noise.
small things you can control.
Yeah, going back to noise levels, you can control how you respond to uh, just I want to say I say stress in terms of like in our house, like we don't yell, like we just don't yell, and so that affects the household and how we get along. So that's part of controlling our environment, like so we don't yell at our kids, and so just little things that you can do to control your environment. And again, it's the key word is your environment, not somebody else's environment. I can't go to Kevin's house and be like, nah, bro, you need to do this. Like, no, that's his environment. His
Love it.
Kevin be like, I think
Uh-huh.
you need to take a nap, brother. But yeah, so you don't expect to go to somebody else's house to control their environment, but these are the things that you can do to control your own environment.
Well, I
And
don't get that impression when I read Facebook posts. But they should be doing this.
yeah, but you can't control it. That's why you just speak
Well, that's
hypothetically.
why they all messed up because they're not doing it the way I say they should do it.
Yeah. And so we're not talking hypotheticals. We're talking about what you can do in your space. But yeah, that's it. I just wanted just to stretch that out a little bit more because I know that you focus heavily on environment, and we do too to an extent in terms of what comes in, what permeates the atmosphere, kind of stuff. What's tolerable.
Get
You
that
know,
feng shui.
yeah, exactly. Sean said laugh a lot. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
sure.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
definitely essential.
and that definitely helps. Like that again, it do with the heart good like medicine. And
Man,
man, that ain't a true statement. I don't know. It's like that's a Bible truth that's real. Like like straight up. And because it can just change your perspective. It changes your perspective on any given situation. And it alleviates that stress, it alleviates that cortisol buildup and all of that. So definitely provide a lot of laughter. I know, like me and my wife, we crack jokes with each other constantly. I think it's just part of being black sometimes, but
that's exactly what I was thinking before when you were saying it. I was about to say, well, that's part of the black experience.
exactly. Yeah, that's the black experience, at least as far as I know. I'm like, almost every
Something's
black
going on.
person I know is funny to some degree.
Like I was thinking about when the pandemic first hit, and I was seeing posts and people was like, "Come on, y'all, yeah." Like we always laughing.
Yeah.
We always find a way to laugh at.
Always. I mean, and that's the reason why we have such longevity in this country. To be honest, it's just part of the resolve, right? And so just little things that you can do to control your environment, and just focus on the things that you do to control. Like just focus on the things that you can control: your mindset, uh, your actions, your reactions, all of those things. And again, it takes time. We're not saying that this stuff is overnight, but you can control
Mhm.
how you start planning ahead. That's part of it as well. So we talked about, controlling information when it comes in. How do we respond to it? Whether it be about our health, whether it be about a circumstance, whether it be about anything, that is a choice that we often have. The majority of the time, have there's always scenarios, but the majority of the
Right.
time you have control over how you react to certain things. You have control over what the new outcomes will be. If you don't like your current circumstances, you have control over how you're going to change that going forward. That's up to you as well. And even when you start exercising control over yourself, you'll see that permeating the way others treat you is also. So just keep that in mind. The more control you have over yourself and the things that you can control,
It
the
affects other people.
yeah, like you said, there's all kinds of side effects that happen in good, bad, or indifferent. But there's all kinds of usually positive side effects that come along with controlling certain areas. We talked about going back to the exercise. We got to bring that up, like keystone habits, right? When you start taking control over keystone habits in your life, a whole lot of things get better. They really do, because you start eliminating the things that you probably should be doing anyway. And
Yep.
so again, this is all we're just talking about. Is I think it was a good subject Kevin came up with. He's a subject man. So if you like the subject, make sure you give Kevin credit for that.
If you
Nine
don't
times out
like
of
it,
yeah, it's my Debo to Kevin. What we talk about.
we talking about punk.
Exactly. It's like what we talk about tonight. So I try to all that.
Eliminate anyone that is toxic and or negative.
Yep. And sometimes that person might be you.
Man,
It's like,
facts. I
like,
guess I'm the only person in the room, so I guess it's me.
it's like, man, we acting all crazy. Like, man, you in the house by yourself, bro. What's going on? Said,
Yeah,
leaving the
man,
toxic
negativity, man.
behind.
Negative people and negativity, negative Nancy's. Um, I ain't gonna say totally eliminate them, but keep them at bay, I guess.
Yeah.
Keep them at bay. Hit my word out, bro.
Yeah. Well, you gotta have enough words to wrap it up.
Two shot guys and a mic like Taylor, J. Kevin here, just talking about control the controllables. Focus on the controllables, and let everything else be. Do your best. Let God do the rest.
I knew you was gonna say it.
That's all I got. We
What that
definitely
is,
appreciate you. We don't
what
take your time and attention for granted. Hopefully, you got some kind of return on your what you've given us. Definitely
First
appreciate
Kevin 3 and 4. Do your best, let God do the rest. All right.
it.
Peace out, everybody.